In the spring of 1900, British archaeologist Sir Arthur Evans stood before the partially excavated ruins of what would become known as the Palace of Knossos on the Greek island of Crete, his hands trembling slightly as he held fragments of painted plaster that depicted scenes unlike anything previously discovered in the ancient world. The vibrant frescoes showed elegant figures with elaborate hairstyles, their waists cinched impossibly thin, leaping over charging bulls and displays of athletic prowess that seemed to defy gravity itself. These were not the stern, militaristic images that characterize most ancient Mediterranean civilizations, but rather depictions of a society that appeared to celebrate beauty, nature, and the human form with an almost modern sensibility. As Evans carefully brushed away millennia of accumulated soil and debris from the colorful wall paintings, he realized he had stumbled upon evidence of a sophisticated Bronze Age civilization that had flourished on Crete and surrounding islands for over a millennium before the rise of classical Greece. The delicate pottery sherds scattered around the excavation site bore intricate designs of marine life octopi with flowing tentacles, dolphins racing through stylized waves, and fish swimming in endless spirals around ceramic vessels, suggesting a people who lived in intimate harmony with the sea that surrounded their island home. The architectural remains emerging from the earth revealed a complex of interconnected rooms, corridors, and courtyards that defied conventional understanding of ancient palace design, with no obvious fortification walls or defensive structures, implying a level of security and prosperity that allowed the inhabitants to focus on art, commerce, and religious ceremony rather than military conquest. The linear A script found inscribed on clay tablets throughout the site remained tantalizingly undeciphered, holding secrets of administrative records, religious texts, and personal correspondence that might illuminate the daily lives of these mysterious people who had controlled the eastern Mediterranean trade routes for centuries. Before vanishing from history with startling suddenness, Evans named this lost civilization Minoan after the legendary king Minos of Greek mythology. Though the connection between the archaeological evidence and the later Greek stories remained speculative at best, and as he continued his excavations over the following decades, the picture that emerged was of a sophisticated Bronze Age society that had achieved remarkable technological, artistic, and economic accomplishments in relative isolation on their island stronghold. The stratified layers of occupation revealed through careful archaeological excavation techniques demonstrated continuous habitation and development spanning from approximately 3100 BCE to 1100 BCE, with the civilization reaching its zenith during the period archaeologists now call the Late Minoan period, roughly 1700 to 1450 BCE, when Minoan influence extended throughout the Aegean Sea and eastern Mediterranean, establishing trading posts and colonies from Egypt to Sicily and creating the first truly maritime empire in recorded history. The sophisticated drainage systems, multi-story buildings with running water, and elaborate storage facilities for agricultural surplus that Evans uncovered suggested a level of urban planning and social organization that would not be seen again in Europe for over 1,000 years. While the absence of weapons in many burial contexts and the peaceful, naturalistic themes dominating Minoan art implied a society that had somehow achieved prosperity and stability without the constant warfare that characterized most Bronze Age civilizations. The discovery of extensive workshops for pottery production, metalworking, textile manufacture, and luxury goods creation within the palace complexes indicated that these were not merely royal residences but also economic centers where skilled artisans created the fine goods that formed the backbone of Minoan trade relationships throughout the ancient world. And as Evans painstakingly reconstructed the colorful frescoes and examined the sophisticated architectural features, he began to envision a Bronze Age civilization that had achieved a level of cultural refinement and economic prosperity that would serve as a foundation for the later flowering of classical Greek civilization. The origins of Minoan civilization can be traced through archaeological evidence to the Neolithic period on Crete, where the earliest human settlements date to approximately 7000 BCE, when small farming communities first established themselves in the fertile valleys and coastal plains of the island, bringing with them domesticated sheep, goats, cattle, and pigs, along with cultivated varieties of wheat, barley, and legumes that would form the agricultural foundation for all subsequent development. The transition from the Neolithic to the early Minoan period, around 3100 BCE, marked by the introduction of bronze metallurgy, which revolutionized tool and weapon production, while enabling the creation of more sophisticated agricultural implements, construction tools, and decorative objects that reflected increasing social stratification and specialization within Minoan society. Archaeological excavations at sites such as Myrtos, Vasiliki, and 4 New Karifi have revealed early Minoan settlements, characterized by rectangular houses built of stone foundations with mud brick superstructures, featuring flat roofs that served as additional living and working spaces. While the material culture assemblages from these sites include distinctive pottery styles, such as the modeled Vasiliki ware, with its characteristic flame-like patterns, created through controlled firing techniques that demonstrated sophisticated ceramic technology. The early Minoan period also witnessed the development of distinctive burial practices, with the construction of circular stone-built tombs called tholoi in the Mesara plain of southern Crete, where successive generations of community members were interred along with grave goods, including bronze daggers, stone vessels, jewelry, and ceramic offerings that reflected both personal wealth and spiritual beliefs about the afterlife. The strategic location of Crete at the crossroads between Europe, Asia, and Africa made it a natural way station for maritime trade routes that connected the emerging Bronze Age civilizations of Egypt, Anatolia, and the Levant. And archaeological evidence suggests that even during the early Minoan period, Cretan communities were participating in long-distance exchange networks that brought exotic materials such as obsidian from Melos, silver from the Cyclades, and ivory from Egypt to the island in exchange for local products including olive oil, wine, and manufactured goods. The gradual accumulation of wealth through trade enabled the emergence of increasingly complex social hierarchies, evidenced by the appearance of larger, more elaborate houses in settlement contexts and richer grave goods and burial assemblages, while the development of specialized craft production areas within settlements suggests that certain individuals or families had begun to focus their economic activities on the creation of specific types of goods for trade rather than subsistence farming alone. The Middle Minoan period, beginning around 2000 BC, marked the emergence of the first palace complexes at Knossos, Malia, Phaistos, and Zakharos, representing a revolutionary development in Minoan social and political organization that centralized administrative, religious, and economic functions within these monumental architectural complexes that served as focal points for their surrounding territories. These early palaces, built on an unprecedented scale for Bronze Age Crete, featured complex arrangements of storage rooms, workshops, residential quarters, and ceremonial spaces organized around central courtyards that served multiple functions, including religious ceremonies, administrative meetings, and public gatherings. While sophisticated architectural features such as elaborate drainage systems, light wells, and multi-story construction techniques demonstrated advanced engineering, knowledge, and urban planning capabilities, the introduction of the linear writing system during the Middle Minoan period represented another crucial development, providing administrators with the tools necessary to manage the increasingly complex economic and social relationships that characterize palace-centered society. Though the undeciphered nature of Linear A continues to limit our understanding of Minoan administrative practices, religious beliefs, and historical narratives, archaeological evidence from Middle Minoan contexts reveals dramatic expansion in craft specialization, with palace workshops producing fine pottery, metalwork, stone vessels, textiles, and luxury goods that were traded throughout the eastern Mediterranean, establishing Crete as a major center of Bronze Age manufacturing and commerce that competed successfully with established civilizations in Egypt, Syria, and Anatolia for control of lucrative trade routes and markets. The material culture of Minoan civilization reveals a sophisticated society with highly developed artistic sensibilities, advanced technological capabilities, and complex social organization that supported specialized craft production on an unprecedented scale for Bronze Age Europe, with archaeological assemblages from palace and settlement contexts demonstrating the remarkable skill and creativity of Minoan artisans who worked in a wide variety of media, including ceramics, metals, stone, ivory, faience, and textiles to create both utilitarian objects and luxury goods for local use and international trade. Minoan pottery represents perhaps the most distinctive and recognizable aspect of their material culture, with ceramic traditions that evolve continuously throughout the Bronze Age. From the simple burnished wares of the early Minoan period to the sophisticated polychrome vessels of the late Minoan palaces, featuring naturalistic designs inspired by marine life, plant forms, and geometric patterns that were executed with remarkable technical precision and artistic sensitivity. The famous Kamaris ware of the Middle Minoan period, named after the cave sanctuary where examples were first discovered, exemplifies the high point of Minoan ceramic achievement, with its thin-walled vessels decorated with flowing white and red designs on dark backgrounds, creating dynamic compositions that seem to move and flow around the curved surfaces of cups, bowls, and storage jars in ways that demonstrate sophisticated understanding of how decorative elements interact with three-dimensional form. Archaeological analysis of Minoan pottery production techniques reveals that ceramicists had mastered advanced firing methods including controlled oxidation and reduction atmospheres to achieve specific color effects, while the discovery of specialized pottery kilns and workshop areas within palace complexes indicates that ceramic production had become a highly organized industry, with skilled craftspeople working under palace patronage to supply both local needs and export markets throughout the Mediterranean. The naturalistic marine-style pottery of the late Minoan period, featuring octopi, dolphins, fish, and sea anemones rendered with remarkable anatomical accuracy and artistic flair, reflects the central importance of the sea in Minoan life and culture. While the abstract geometric patterns that often accompany these naturalistic motifs demonstrate sophisticated mathematical understanding of proportion, symmetry, and visual rhythm that rivals the decorative traditions of any contemporary Bronze Age civilization, Minoan metalworking reached equally impressive levels of sophistication, with bronze smiths creating not only practical tools and weapons, but also elaborate ceremonial objects, jewelry, and decorative vessels that showcase advanced techniques, including lost wax casting, repousse work, and inlaid decoration using precious metals and colorful stones. While archaeological evidence from workshop contexts reveals organized production systems, with specialized areas for different stages of the manufacturing process from initial smelting to final finishing and decoration. The discovery of numerous bronze ingots and shipwreck contexts throughout the eastern Mediterranean testifies to the important role that Minoan metalworkers played in supplying raw materials and finished products to trading partners across the ancient world. While the sophisticated alloying techniques evidenced in Minoan bronze work demonstrate advanced metallurgical knowledge that enabled the creation of tools and weapons with superior performance characteristics compared to pure copper implements. Stone vessel production represented another area of Minoan technical and artistic excellence, with craftspeople creating elaborate containers from a variety of colorful stones including marble, serpentine, breccia, and volcanic rocks that were carved with extraordinary precision using bronze tools and abrasive materials to achieve paper-thin walls and complex sculptural forms that often incorporated handles, spouts, and decorative elements inspired by natural forms such as flowers, shells, and animal figures. The technical challenges involved in creating these stone vessels, particularly the large storage containers called pithoi that could hold hundreds of gallons of oil or wine, required sophisticated understanding of material properties, structural, engineering, and manufacturing techniques that were passed down through generations of specialized craftspeople, working within well-established guild systems that maintained quality standards and training protocols. Minoan textile production, though less well-preserved in the archaeological record due to the perishable nature of organic materials, can be reconstructed through careful analysis of loom weights, spindle whorls, and textile implements found in domestic and workshop contexts, along with textile impressions preserved on metal objects and detailed depictions of clothing and fabric patterns in frescoes and other artistic media that reveal a sophisticated industry capable of producing fine woolens, linens, and possibly silk fabrics decorated with complex patterns and dyed in brilliant colors, using vegetable and mineral pigments. The elaborate costumes depicted in Minoan art, featuring flounced skirts, tight-fitting bodices, and complex headdresses adorned with jewelry and decorative elements, suggest that textile production had evolved far beyond the level of basic clothing, manufactured to become an important medium for artistic expression and social display. While the discovery of purple dye production facilities at several Minoan sites indicates that palace workshops were involved in creating the luxury textiles that formed an important component of long-distance trade relationships with elite customers. Throughout the eastern Mediterranean region, the social organization of Minoan Civilization is reconstructed from archaeological evidence and comparative analysis with other Bronze Age societies, appears to have been hierarchically structured with palace-centered administrative systems that control both local agricultural production and long-distance trade relationships, while maintaining relatively peaceful internal conditions that allow for remarkable cultural and artistic development. Over more than a millennium of continuous occupation and growth, the palace complexes at Knossos, Phaistos, Mallia, and Zakros served as focal points for their respective regions, functioning simultaneously as royal residences, religious centers, administrative headquarters, and economic redistribution centers that collected agricultural surplus from surrounding territories and redistributed it through complex networks of reciprocal obligations and trade relationships that extended throughout the Aegean and Eastern Mediterranean regions. Archaeological analysis of palace architecture and internal organization suggests that Minoan society was controlled by a ruling elite that combined religious, political, and economic authority within institutions that were less militaristic and more commercially oriented than their contemporaries in Egypt, Mesopotamia, or Anatolia, with palace layouts that prioritize ceremonial spaces, storage facilities, and workshop areas over fortifications, barracks, or other military installations. The linear A tablets found throughout Minoan sites, though still undeciphered, appear to record administrative transactions involving agricultural products, livestock, textiles, and craft goods, suggesting a sophisticated bureaucratic system capable of managing complex economic relationships across multiple communities and regions. While the standardized weights, measures, and pottery forms found throughout Minoan territories indicate centralized administrative control over commercial activities and quality standards, the social stratification of Minoan society can be inferred from differences in housing sizes and construction quality within settlement contexts, with elite residences featuring multi-story construction, elaborate decoration, sophisticated plumbing systems, and extensive storage facilities, while more modest homes show evidence of specialized craft production activities that contributed to household economies through participation in palace-sponsored manufacturing networks. The apparent absence of slave quarters or other evidence for large-scale coercive labor systems and Minoan archaeological context suggests that their society may have operated through forms of social organization based more on reciprocal obligations, kinship relationships, and voluntary participation in collective enterprises than on the military conquest and forced labor that characterize many contemporary Bronze Age civilizations. The prominence of women in Minoan art and religion, evidenced by numerous depictions of female figures in positions of apparent authority and importance, along with archaeological evidence for women's participation in craft production, trade, activities, and religious ceremonies, suggests a level of gender equality that was unusual for Bronze Age societies, though the extent and nature of women's roles in Minoan political and economic life remains a subject of ongoing scholarly debate. The religious dimensions of Minoan social organization appear to have been centered around nature worship, fertility cults, and ceremonial activities that took place in sacred caves, mountaintop sanctuaries, and elaborate ritual complexes within palace contexts, with archaeological evidence including altars, offering tables, ceremonial vessels, and religious figurines suggesting that spiritual practices played a central role in legitimizing political authority and maintaining social cohesion across Minoan territories. The integration of religious and secular authority within palace institutions created stable governance systems that could effectively coordinate large-scale public works projects, maintain extensive trade networks, and support the specialized craft production that formed the economic foundation of Minoan prosperity. While the apparent emphasis on collective ceremony and community participation in religious activities helped to reinforce social bonds and cultural identity that transcended local kinship groups and territorial boundaries, the peaceful coexistence of multiple palace centers throughout Crete, each controlling its own territory but apparently cooperating in broader economic and cultural enterprises, suggests a form of political organization that balanced local autonomy with island-wide coordination in ways that minimize internal conflict, while maximizing opportunities for collective prosperity through specialization, trade, and technological innovation that benefited all participating communities within the broader Minoan cultural sphere. The political development of Minoan civilization evolved gradually from the decentralized village communities of the early Minoan period to the sophisticated palace-centered states of the Late Bronze Age, with archaeological evidence suggesting that this transformation occurred through peaceful processes of economic integration and cultural assimilation rather than military conquest or violent social revolution, creating stable governance systems that endured for centuries while maintaining remarkable cultural continuity and artistic achievement. The emergence of the first palaces around 2000 BC represented a revolutionary development in Minoan political organization, concentrating administrative, religious, and economic functions within monumental architectural complexes that served as seats of territorial authority while providing the institutional framework necessary to coordinate increasingly complex social and economic relationships across expanding geographical areas. Archaeological analysis of palace construction sequences reveals that these institutions developed through multiple phases of expansion and reconstruction, with each building campaign incorporating more sophisticated architectural features, larger storage capacities, and more elaborate ceremonial spaces that reflected growing political authority and economic prosperity derived from successful participation in Mediterranean trade networks. The administrative systems evidenced by linear tablets and associated archaeological contexts suggest that Minoan palaces functioned as redistribution centers that collected agricultural surplus, craft products, and trade goods from their territories, and reallocated these resources through networks of reciprocal obligations that bound local communities to central authorities while providing security, infrastructure, and access to exotic goods that enhance quality of life throughout Minoan society. The apparent absence of major fortification systems around most Minoan settlements and palace complexes implies that political authority was maintained through consensus, economic incentives, and religious legitimacy rather than military force, creating governance structures that were more flexible and less coercive than those found in contemporary civilizations in Egypt, Mesopotamia, or the Hittite Empire, while still maintaining sufficient organizational capacity to coordinate large-scale public works, international diplomacy, and complex manufacturing enterprises. The coexistence of multiple independent palace centers throughout Crete during the late Minoan period suggests a form of political organization that balanced local autonomy with island-wide cooperation, possibly through confederate arrangements or rotating leadership systems that prevented any single center from achieving complete dominance, while maintaining the cultural unity and economic integration that characterized Minoan civilization at its height. Archaeological evidence for standardized weights, measures, pottery forms, and architectural styles across all Minoan territories indicates that despite political decentralization, there were effective mechanisms for maintaining cultural coherence and commercial coordination that facilitated trade relationships, technological diffusion, and artistic exchange between different regions of the Minoan world. The religious dimensions of Minoan political authority appear to have been crucial for legitimizing secular power, with palace complexes incorporating elaborate ritual areas, sacred symbols, and ceremonial objects that connected rulers to divine authority through participation in seasonal festivals, agricultural ceremonies, and other religious observances that reinforce social bonds while demonstrating the prosperity and cultural achievements that justified elite status and political privilege. The integration of economic, religious, and political functions within palace institutions created remarkably stable governance systems that could adapt to changing circumstances while maintaining essential continuity in social organization, cultural values, and technological development, allowing Minoan civilization to flourish for over a millennium. Despite external pressures from competing civilizations, environmental challenges, and internal social changes that might have destabilized less flexible political arrangements, the diplomatic relationships evidenced by Minoan artifacts in Egyptian tombs, Mesopotamian sites, and other contemporary contexts suggest that palace authorities were capable of conducting sophisticated international relations, negotiating trade agreements, and maintaining peaceful relationships with foreign powers through gift exchange, marriage alliances, and other diplomatic mechanisms that enhance Minoan prestige while securing access to essential raw materials and luxury goods that supported elite lifestyles and economic prosperity. The apparent peaceful transition from the Middle Minoan Palace period to the late Minoan peak of civilization demonstrates the effectiveness of Minoan political institutions in managing social change and economic growth without the violent conflicts that often accompanied similar developments in other Bronze Age societies, creating a model of sustainable political development that balanced individual autonomy with collective welfare while maintaining the cultural creativity and technological innovation that made Minoan civilization one of the most remarkable achievements of the ancient world. The economic foundations of Minoan civilization were built upon a sophisticated combination of agricultural production, specialized craft manufacturing, and extensive maritime trade networks that transformed Crete from a peripheral island community into the dominant commercial power of the Bronze Age Aegean, with archaeological evidence revealing complex systems of resource management, technological innovation, and market integration that supported unprecedented levels of prosperity and cultural development throughout Minoan society. The agricultural basis of Minoan economy centered on the Mediterranean triad of wheat, olives, and grapes, supplemented by barley, legumes, and tree crops that were cultivated using advanced techniques including terracing, irrigation, and crop rotation that maximized yields from the island's diverse ecological zones, while maintaining soil fertility and preventing erosion that might have threatened long-term productivity. Archaeological analysis of storage facilities within palace complexes reveals massive capacity for agricultural surplus accumulation, with individual storage rooms containing dozens of giant pithoi, capable of holding thousands of gallons of olive oil, wine, and grain that serve not only as reserves for local consumption, but also as the primary commodity. As in Minoan export trade throughout the eastern Mediterranean region, the sophisticated systems of agricultural administration evidenced by linear tablets and associated archaeological contexts suggest that palace authorities maintained detailed records of production, storage, and distribution that enabled efficient management of seasonal variations in crop yields while providing the economic foundation necessary to support specialized craft production, monumental architecture, and long-distance trade expeditions that enhance Minoan wealth and international influence. The development of olive oil and wine production on an industrial scale during the Middle and late Minoan periods created valuable export commodities that were highly sought after throughout the ancient world, with archaeological evidence from production facilities revealing advanced techniques for pressing, fermentation, and storage that produced high-quality products capable of competing successfully with established producers in Syria, Palestine, and other Mediterranean regions where these crops have been cultivated for centuries. Before their introduction to Crete, the integration of agricultural production with specialized craft manufacturing created synergistic economic relationships that enhance overall productivity and profitability, with palace workshops using agricultural surplus to support artisans who created pottery, textiles, metalwork, and luxury goods that commanded premium prices in international markets while local communities benefited from employment opportunities, technological innovation, and access to exotic goods obtained through trade relationships. The maritime orientation of Minoan economy is evidenced by extensive harbor facilities, shipbuilding installations, and specialized equipment for underwater recovery of trade goods from shipwrecks, along with the distinctive stirrup jars and other ceramic containers designed specifically for seaborne transport of liquid commodities that have been found throughout the eastern Mediterranean in contexts ranging from Egyptian tombs to Mesopotamian palaces. Archaeological evidence from Minoan trading posts and colonies at sites such as Akrotiri on Thera, Triana on Rhodes, and Miletus on the Anatolian coast demonstrates the extent of their commercial networks and the sophisticated organizational systems required to maintain regular contact with distant markets, while ensuring the safety of valuable cargo and personnel involved in long-distance trade expeditions. The discovery of numerous shipwrecks containing Minoan cargo in waters throughout the eastern Mediterranean provides direct evidence for the scale and scope of their maritime commerce, with cargoes including not only Minoan manufactured goods, but also raw materials and products from throughout the known world, indicating that Minoan merchants served as intermediaries in complex multilateral trade relationships that connected diverse civilizations and cultures. The standardization of weights, measures, and currency systems throughout Minoan territories facilitated commercial transactions, while reducing the transaction costs associated with trade negotiations, quality control, and value assessment, creating economic efficiencies that enhance competitiveness in international markets, while supporting the development of sophisticated financial institutions capable of managing credit, investment, and risk assessment in ways that encourage entrepreneurship and commercial expansion. The economic prosperity achieved through this combination of agricultural surplus, craft specialization, and maritime trade created the wealth necessary to support the monumental architecture, artistic achievements, and technological innovations that characterized Minoan civilization at its height. While the relatively egalitarian distribution of wealth evidenced by archaeological analysis of housing and burial contexts suggests that economic benefits were shared broadly throughout society, rather than concentrated exclusively within narrow elite groups, as was common in many contemporary Bronze Age civilizations. The sustainability of Minoan economic systems over more than a millennium of continuous growth and development demonstrates sophisticated understanding of resource management, environmental conservation, and long-term planning that enabled them to maintain prosperity while avoiding the overexploitation of natural resources, population pressures, and social conflicts that contributed to the collapse of other Bronze Age civilizations. In the Eastern Mediterranean region, the religious beliefs and practices of Minoan civilization, as reconstructed from archaeological evidence including sacred sites, ritual objects, artistic representations, and architectural features, reveal a complex spiritual system centered around nature worship, fertility cults, and ceremonial activities that play crucial roles in legitimizing political authority, maintaining social cohesion, and providing psychological comfort and cultural identity for individuals and communities throughout the Minoan world. The prominent role of female deities in Minoan religion is evidenced by numerous artistic representations of goddesses associated with natural forces, fertility, and protection, including the famous snake goddess figurines from Knossos that depict elaborately dressed female figures holding serpents in raised hands while wearing flounced skirts, and tight-fitting bodices that emphasize feminine attributes and divine power over the natural world. Archaeological investigation of Minoan sacred sites reveals a diverse landscape of religious practice that included mountaintop sanctuaries, sacred caves, palace shrine rooms, and domestic altars that provided multiple venues for spiritual expression, ranging from large-scale community festivals to intimate personal devotions, while the widespread distribution of religious symbols and ritual objects throughout settlement contexts suggests that spiritual practices were integrated into daily life rather than restricted to specialized priestly classes or exclusive temple complexes. The sacred caves scattered throughout Crete, including the famous Kamaris Cave and the Cave of Elathia, served as pilgrimage destinations where worshippers left offerings of pottery, figurines, jewelry, and food items in ceremonies that may have been connected to seasonal agricultural cycles, life transitions, or requests for divine intervention in personal or community affairs. While the remote locations of many cave sanctuaries required significant effort to reach and suggests that spiritual journeys were considered important aspects of religious practice. The mountaintop sanctuaries found at numerous locations throughout Minoan territories provided dramatic settings for religious ceremonies that connected worshippers with celestial phenomena, seasonal changes, and panoramic views of land and sea that emphasized the integration of human communities with natural environments. While archaeological evidence, including altar structures, offering deposits, and ritual vessels indicates that these sites hosted regular ceremonial activities throughout the Bronze Age period. The elaborate shrine rooms within palace complexes featured sophisticated architectural elements, including step altars, sacred pillars, lustral basins, and elaborate frescoes depicting religious scenes that demonstrate the central importance of spiritual practices in legitimizing political authority and maintaining social order. While the discovery of numerous ritual objects including rhytons, libation vessels, and ceremonial weapons suggests that palace-sponsored religious ceremonies were elaborate affairs that reinforce hierarchical relationships while providing spectacular entertainment and spiritual inspiration for participants. The famous bull leaping scenes depicted in Minoan art represent one of the most distinctive and enigmatic aspects of their religious practices, showing young men and women performing acrobatic feats with charging bulls in ceremonies that may have been connected to fertility cults, coming-of-age rituals, or seasonal festivals that celebrated the power and vitality of natural forces, while demonstrating human courage and skill in dangerous encounters with sacred animals. The widespread use of double-axe symbols, sacred horns, and tree and pillar cult representations throughout Minoan religious art suggests a sophisticated symbolic system that connected spiritual beliefs with natural phenomena, agricultural cycles, and cosmic forces in ways that provided comprehensive worldview frameworks for understanding human relationships with divine powers and natural environments. The integration of religious practices with economic activities is evidenced by numerous workshop areas within palace complexes that produce ritual objects, ceremonial vessels, and religious artwork for both local use and export trade, indicating that spiritual beliefs were not separate from practical concerns, but rather provided essential cultural foundations that supported and legitimized the economic and political systems that generated Minoan prosperity and social stability. The apparent absence of human sacrifice or other violent religious practices in Minoan archaeological contexts, contrasted with the prominence of such practices in contemporary civilizations, suggests that their spiritual beliefs emphasize harmony, fertility, and celebration of life rather than appeasement of wrathful deities through destructive offerings, creating religious systems that supported peaceful social relationships and constructive community cooperation. The sophisticated burial practices evidenced in Minoan cemeteries, including elaborate tomb construction, careful body preparation, and rich grave goods assemblages, demonstrate beliefs about afterlife continuation and spiritual survival that provided comfort and meaning for individuals while reinforcing social hierarchies and cultural values that contributed to civilization stability and continuity across generations of political and economic change. The seasonal nature of many Minoan religious festivals, as suggested by agricultural themes and artistic representations, and the timing of offering deposits at sacred sites, indicates that spiritual practices were closely integrated with natural cycles and agricultural activities that formed the economic foundation of their civilization, creating religious systems that supported practical concerns while providing transcendent meaning and cultural identity that enhanced social solidarity and individual psychological well-being throughout Minoan society. The military organization and warfare practices of Minoan civilization present one of the most intriguing and debated aspects of their society, with archaeological evidence suggesting a complex relationship with violence and defense that differed significantly from the heavily militarized Bronze Age civilizations of Egypt, Mesopotamia, and Anatolia, while still maintaining sufficient military capability to protect their territories, trade routes, and economic interests throughout the turbulent political environment of the late Bronze Age Eastern Mediterranean. The apparent absence of major fortification walls around most Minoan settlements and palace complexes has led many scholars to characterize Minoan society as uniquely peaceful, though this interpretation must be balanced against evidence for weapons production, warrior imagery and art, and the practical necessities of defending valuable trade goods and territories from both foreign invasion and internal disorder that would have threatened the economic foundations of their prosperity and cultural achievements. Archaeological analysis of Minoan weapons assemblages reveals sophisticated metallurgical technology applied to the production of bronze swords, daggers, spears, and arrowheads that demonstrate advanced understanding of alloy composition, heat, treatment, and blade geometry necessary to create effective combat equipment. While the discovery of weapons in both burial contexts and settlement areas indicates that martial skills and equipment were valued and maintained throughout Minoan society, even if large-scale warfare was not a constant preoccupation. The famous warrior imagery found in Minoan seals, frescoes, and other artistic media depicts armed figures engaged in combat, hunting, and ceremonial activities that suggest military prowess was considered an important aspect of elite identity and social status. While the technical quality and artistic sophistication of these representations indicates that warfare was sufficiently significant in Minoan culture to merit detailed artistic attention and skilled craftsmanship in its depiction, the naval orientation of Minoan military capabilities appears to have been crucial for protecting the maritime trade networks that formed the foundation of their economic prosperity, with archaeological evidence for harbor fortifications, naval installations, and specialized ship construction techniques that enabled them to maintain security over extensive sea routes while projecting power to distant trading posts and colonies throughout the Aegean and Eastern Mediterranean regions. The relatively small size of most Minoan weapons compared to contemporary military equipment from other Bronze Age civilizations suggests that their approach to warfare emphasized mobility, naval tactics, and individual combat skills rather than the massed infantry formations and siege warfare techniques that characterized mainland military traditions, creating military systems that were well adapted to the geographical constraints and strategic requirements of island-based civilization. The integration of military functions with religious and ceremonial activities is evidenced by the discovery of weapons in shrine contexts and the depiction of armed figures in religious scenes, suggesting that warrior roles were connected to spiritual beliefs about protection, fertility, and divine authority in ways that legitimized the use of violence, while constraining it within culturally approved boundaries and ritual frameworks. The apparent coordination between different Minoan centers in maintaining security and defense arrangements is suggested by standardized weapon types, fortification techniques, and military imagery found throughout their territories, indicating that despite political decentralization, there were effective mechanisms for military cooperation and mutual defense that could respond to external threats while maintaining internal peace and stability. The evidence for Minoan military activities in foreign territories, including possible garrison installations and defensive structures at trading posts, such as Akrotiri and Miletus, demonstrates that they were capable of projecting power beyond their immediate island territories when necessary to protect economic interests and maintain access to essential resources and markets that supported their civilization. The gradual militarization of Minoan society during the Late Bronze Age, evidenced by increased weapon production, more elaborate fortifications at key sites, and changes in artistic themes that emphasize martial imagery, reflects growing external pressures from expanding mainland civilizations and changing political conditions throughout the Eastern Mediterranean that eventually contributed to the decline and transformation of Minoan power during the final centuries of the Bronze Age. The balance between peaceful commerce and military preparedness that characterized Minoan civilization for most of its history represents a remarkable achievement in Bronze Age statecraft that enabled them to maintain prosperity and cultural development while navigating the complex political and military challenges posed by more aggressive contemporary civilizations, creating defense strategies that protected their interests without sacrificing the economic and cultural priorities that made their society distinctive and successful. The ultimate inability of Minoan military systems to prevent foreign conquest and cultural transformation during the Late Bronze Age demonstrates both the effectiveness of their defensive arrangements for many centuries and the limitations of their strategic approach when confronted with the overwhelming force and sustained pressure applied by the expanding Mycenaean civilization that eventually gained control over Crete and transformed the political and cultural landscape of the Aegean region. The artistic and architectural achievements of Minoan civilization represent perhaps their most enduring and influential contribution to world culture, with archaeological evidence revealing sophisticated aesthetic sensibilities, advanced technical capabilities, and innovative design concepts that influenced artistic development throughout the ancient Mediterranean while creating masterworks of painting, sculpture, architecture, and decorative arts that continue to inspire admiration and scholarly interest. More than 3 millennia after their creation, the architectural innovations pioneered by Minoan builders revolutionized Bronze Age construction techniques through the development of multi-story buildings, sophisticated drainage systems, light wells, and complex spatial arrangements that maximize functionality while creating visually impressive structures that serve simultaneously as royal residences, administrative centers, religious sanctuaries, and economic redistribution facilities within integrated palace complexes that represented some of the most ambitious architectural projects of their era. The Palace at Knossos, reconstructed through extensive archaeological investigation and interpretation, reveals architectural planning principles that balance practical requirements with aesthetic considerations through the creative use of space, light, color, and decorative elements that created environments designed to inspire awe and demonstrate the power and sophistication of Minoan civilization to both residents and foreign visitors, who would have been impressed by the technological achievements and artistic refinement evident throughout these monumental structures. The sophisticated engineering systems incorporated into Minoan architecture, including elaborate plumbing networks with terracotta pipes, stone-lined drains, and flush toilets that provided running water and waste removal capabilities not seen again in Europe until the Roman period, demonstrate advanced understanding of hydraulic principles and construction techniques that required skilled craftspeople, careful planning, and substantial investment of resources and labor to implement successfully. The distinctive Minoan architectural style, characterized by tapering columns painted bright red with bulbous capitals, elaborate stone masonry using precisely fitted blocks without mortar, and colorful frescoes that decorated interior walls with naturalistic scenes and geometric patterns, created visual effects that emphasize harmony between built environments and natural landscapes, while showcasing the technical skills and artistic sensibilities that distinguish Minoan culture from contemporary Bronze Age civilizations. The fresco paintings that adorn palace walls and other important buildings represent some of the finest artistic achievements of the ancient world, featuring sophisticated techniques including true fresco application on wet plaster, complex color palettes using mineral and vegetable pigments, and compositional arrangements that demonstrate advanced understanding of perspective, proportion, and narrative structure in ways that create dynamic visual experiences despite the two-dimensional limitations of wall painting as an artistic medium. The famous frescoes from Knossos, including the bull leaping scene, the ladies in blue, and the dolphin fresco from the Queen's Megaron, showcase the distinctive Minoan artistic style that emphasized naturalistic representation, elegant proportions, graceful movement, and decorative sophistication that influenced artistic development throughout the Aegean region, while creating masterworks that rank among the greatest achievements of Bronze Age art anywhere in the ancient world. The integration of architectural and artistic elements within palace complexes created unified aesthetic environments that reinforced the religious, political, and cultural messages that legitimize Minoan authority while providing visually spectacular settings for ceremonies, administrative activities, and daily life that enhance the quality of experience for all participants in palace-centered society. The influence of Minoan artistic and architectural innovations can be traced throughout the Bronze Age Aegean and Eastern Mediterranean through the adoption of Minoan decorative motifs, construction techniques, and design principles by other civilizations, including the Mycenaeans, who eventually conquered Crete but continued to use many Minoan artistic and architectural traditions that became integral components of later Greek cultural development, while the discovery of Minoan-style artifacts and architectural features at sites throughout the ancient world demonstrates the far-reaching impact of their aesthetic achievements on subsequent artistic traditions. The sophisticated pottery decoration techniques developed by Minoan ceramicists, including the naturalistic marine style with its flowing depictions of octopi, dolphins, and fish, along with the abstract geometric patterns and floral motifs that adorn vessels of all sizes and functions, created decorative vocabularies that were adopted and adapted by craftspeople throughout the Mediterranean region while establishing artistic standards for ceramic decoration that influenced pottery production for centuries after the decline of Minoan political power. The technical innovations in fresco painting, including the development of stable pigments, advanced application techniques, and sophisticated composition methods that enabled the creation of large-scale narrative scenes and decorative programs, provided the foundation for subsequent developments in Greek and Roman wall painting, while establishing artistic principles that continue to influence decorative arts. Throughout the classical period and beyond, the architectural legacy of Minoan civilization, including innovations in palace design, urban planning, and construction engineering, provided models and inspiration for later Greek architecture, while contributing specific technical solutions and aesthetic principles that became integral components of classical architectural traditions that continue to influence building design and urban planning concepts into the modern era. The preservation of Minoan artistic and architectural achievements through archaeological excavation and scholarly research has provided modern audiences with direct access to one of the most sophisticated and influential artistic traditions of the ancient world, while ongoing analysis and interpretation of these materials continues to reveal new insights into the creative processes, technical capabilities, and cultural meanings that made Minoan civilization such a remarkable and enduring achievement in human artistic development. The complex web of international relationships that connected Minoan civilization to the broader world of Bronze Age politics, diplomacy, and cultural exchange reveals a sophisticated understanding of foreign affairs and strategic positioning that enabled this island-based society to maintain independence and prosperity while navigating the dangerous currents of great power competition between Egypt, the Hittite Empire, Assyria, and other major civilizations that dominated the political landscape of the Eastern Mediterranean. During the 2nd millennium BCE, archaeological evidence for Minoan presence in foreign contexts, including distinctive pottery, artistic motifs, and architectural features found at sites throughout the Aegean, Anatolia, the Levant, and Egypt, demonstrates the extensive reach of their cultural influence and commercial relationships that extended far beyond what might be expected for a relatively small island civilization operating in a world dominated by vast continental empires. With enormous military and economic resources, the diplomatic relationships between Minoan rulers and foreign powers are evidenced by luxury goods found in palace contexts that originated in distant lands, including Egyptian scarabs, Mesopotamian cylinder seals, Anatolian metalwork, and Syrian ivory carvings that were likely exchanged through gift diplomacy, royal marriages, and treaty arrangements that provided mutual benefits while maintaining peaceful relationships that facilitated trade and cultural exchange. The famous wall paintings from Marian Syria that depict figures wearing distinctively Minoan-style clothing and the presence of Minoan pottery in Egyptian royal tombs and temple contexts indicate that Minoan civilization had achieved sufficient international recognition and prestige to participate in the highest levels of Bronze Age diplomacy and cultural exchange that connected the elite classes of different civilizations through networks of mutual obligation and reciprocal relationship. The strategic importance of Crete's geographic position at the crossroads between Europe, Asia, and Africa made Minoan cooperation valuable to all major powers, seeking to maintain secure communications and trade routes through the Eastern Mediterranean, while the island's relative isolation provided natural protection that enabled Minoan rulers to maintain bargaining power and independence, even when dealing with much larger and more powerful neighbors who might otherwise have been tempted to impose direct control over such a valuable strategic asset. The evidence for Minoan trading colonies and diplomatic outposts at locations such as Akrotiri, Triana, and Miletus demonstrates their ability to project power and influence beyond their immediate island territories through peaceful means that establish permanent presence in foreign regions while maintaining cooperative relationships with local populations and regional powers that facilitated long-term commercial and cultural relationships. The technological and artistic innovations that originated in Minoan civilization and spread throughout the Bronze Age world through trade relationships, diplomatic contacts, and cultural exchange created lasting influences that enhanced the reputation and soft power of Minoan civilization while providing valuable cultural exports that could be exchanged for political favors, military support, and access to essential resources that supported continued prosperity and independence. The multilingual and multicultural character of Minoan society, evidenced by foreign influences in their art, architecture, and material culture, along with the presence of foreign residents in Minoan communities and the apparent ease with which Minoan merchants and diplomats operated in foreign environments, suggests a cosmopolitan worldview and sophisticated understanding of cultural differences that enabled effective communication and negotiation with diverse partners throughout the ancient world. The gradual shift in international power balances during the Late Bronze Age, as mainland Greek civilization began to expand and assert dominance over Aegean trade routes and territories, created increasingly difficult challenges for Minoan diplomacy that required careful navigation between competing powers, while attempting to maintain traditional relationships and commercial arrangements that had provided stability and prosperity for centuries. The ultimate failure of Minoan diplomatic strategies to prevent Mycenaean conquest and political subordination demonstrates both the effectiveness of their international relationships for many centuries and the limitations of peaceful diplomatic approaches when confronted with aggressive expansionist powers that were willing to use military force to achieve political and economic objectives that could not be obtained through negotiation and mutual agreement. The legacy of Minoan diplomatic achievements includes not only the cultural and technological innovations that they spread throughout the ancient world, but also the model they provided for small states seeking to maintain independence and prosperity through skilled diplomacy, cultural influence, and economic relationships rather than military power and territorial conquest, creating precedents that influence subsequent developments in international relations and diplomatic practice throughout the classical period and beyond. The decline and eventual collapse of Minoan civilization during the Late Bronze Age represents one of the most dramatic and mysterious episodes in ancient Mediterranean history, involving a complex combination of natural disasters, internal social changes, external military pressures, and economic disruptions that transformed the political and cultural landscape of the Aegean region, while ending more than a millennium of Minoan dominance over Eastern Mediterranean trade networks and cultural development. The catastrophic volcanic eruption of Thera around 1627 BCE, as determined through detailed archaeological investigation and scientific analysis of volcanic deposits, tephra layers, and triarine chronologies, devastated much of the southern Aegean region with massive tsunamis, ashfalls, and seismic damage that destroyed coastal settlements, disrupted agricultural production, and severed trade relationships that had provided essential economic support for Minoan prosperity and political stability. Archaeological evidence from sites throughout Crete reveals extensive destruction and abandonment during the late Minoan IB period that has been linked to the Thera eruption, though the exact mechanisms by which the volcanic catastrophe affected different regions and communities remain subjects of ongoing scholarly debate. That involves complex questions about tsunami impact, ashfall distribution, climatic effects, and the resilience of Minoan social and economic systems in responding to natural disasters. The recovery and reconstruction efforts that followed the Thera catastrophe demonstrate remarkable resilience and organizational capability within Minoan society, with evidence for rapid rebuilding of damaged structures, restoration of agricultural production, and resumption of trade activities that enabled the civilization to survive the immediate crisis, while adapting to changed circumstances through modifications in settlement patterns, economic strategies, and political arrangements that reflected lessons learned from the disaster experience. However, the long-term effects of the Thera eruption may have weakened Minoan society in subtle ways that reduced their ability to respond effectively to subsequent challenges, including climate change, economic competition from mainland Greek civilizations, and internal social tensions that developed as traditional systems proved inadequate for addressing new problems and opportunities in a rapidly changing regional environment. The gradual expansion of Mycenaean Greek civilization during the Late Bronze Age created increasingly serious challenges to Minoan independence and prosperity through direct military competition, economic pressure, and cultural influence that gradually undermined traditional Minoan authority, while offering alternative models of social organization, political structure, and cultural identity that may have appeared more effective and attracted to some segments of Minoan society. Archaeological evidence for the final destruction of major Minoan palace centers around 1450 BCE, including extensive burning, architectural collapse, and abandonment of previously important sites, suggests a coordinated military campaign that effectively ended Minoan political independence while establishing Mycenaean control over Crete and its remaining economic resources. Though the extent to which this conquest represented violent invasion versus gradual political takeover remains a subject of scholarly controversy. The survival of Minoan cultural traditions, technological innovations, and artistic achievements within Mycenaean civilization demonstrates the value and quality of Minoan accomplishments, while suggesting that the transition may have involved significant cultural continuity alongside political and social transformation that preserved many essential elements of Minoan civilization within new institutional and cultural frameworks. The abandonment of linear A writing in favor of linear B script, which has been successfully deciphered and identified as an early form of Greek language, marks a fundamental cultural transition that replaced Minoan administrative and literary traditions with Mycenaean systems, while providing evidence for the thorough political transformation that followed military conquest and cultural assimilation. The gradual decline of distinctive Minoan artistic styles, architectural techniques, and material culture traditions during the late Minoan III period reflects the broader cultural transformation that accompanied political subordination, though many Minoan innovations continued to influence Aegean civilization throughout the remainder of the Bronze Age and into the subsequent Iron Age period, when they became integral components of classical Greek cultural development. The environmental factors that may have contributed to Minoan decline include climate change effects that reduced agricultural productivity, soil erosion that resulted from intensive cultivation and deforestation, and resource depletion that undermined the economic foundations of their civilization while creating vulnerabilities that could be exploited by competitors and enemies seeking to gain control over valuable territories and trade routes. The ultimate collapse of Bronze Age civilization throughout the eastern Mediterranean, around 1200 BCE, known to scholars as the Late Bronze Age collapse, affected the entire region and included the destruction of Mycenaean palaces, the abandonment of major urban centers, and the disruption of trade networks that had connected diverse civilizations for centuries, suggesting that Minoan decline was part of broader systemic changes that transformed the ancient world rather than simply the result of local factors specific to Crete and the Minoan territories. The archaeological rediscovery and scholarly investigation of Minoan civilization, beginning in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, represents one of the most significant achievements in Mediterranean archaeology, transforming understanding of Bronze Age history while providing detailed insights into a sophisticated ancient society that had been lost to historical memory for over 3 millennia, until systematic excavation and scientific analysis revealed the remarkable achievements and cultural complexity of this influential ancient civilization. The pioneering work of Sir Arthur Evans at Knossos, beginning in 1900 and continuing for over 3 decades, established the foundation for all subsequent Minoan studies. Through meticulous excavation techniques, detailed recording methods, and comprehensive publication of findings that set new standards for archaeological investigation, while revealing the existence of a previously unknown Bronze Age civilization. that challenged traditional assumptions about ancient Mediterranean history and cultural development. The controversial reconstruction efforts undertaken by Evans at Knossos, involving extensive use of reinforced concrete and artistic interpretation to restore damaged frescoes and architectural features, created spectacular visual presentations that captured public imagination while generating ongoing scholarly debate about appropriate methods for archaeological preservation, interpretation, and public presentation of ancient sites and artifacts. The development of more sophisticated archaeological techniques during the 20th century, including stratigraphic excavation methods, scientific dating procedures, and interdisciplinary analytical approaches that incorporated geology, botany, chemistry, and other specialized fields, enabled researchers to refine and correct many of Evans's initial interpretations, while providing more accurate and detailed understanding of Minoan chronology, social organization, and cultural achievements. The excavation of additional major sites, including Phaistos, Malea, Zakros, and numerous smaller settlements throughout Crete, expanded knowledge of Minoan civilization beyond the single palace center initially investigated by Evans, revealing regional variations, developmental sequences, and cultural patterns that demonstrated the complexity and diversity of Minoan society, while providing comparative data necessary for comprehensive understanding of their achievements and historical significance. The discovery and investigation of Minoan sites beyond Crete, including Akrotiri on Thera, Triana on Rhodes, and various settlements throughout the Cyclades, demonstrated the extensive geographic reach of Minoan influence while providing insights into their colonial activities, trade relationships, and cultural interactions that revealed the truly international character of their civilization at its height during the Late Bronze Age. The application of scientific techniques including radiocarbon dating, DNA analysis, isotope studies, and advanced materials analysis has revolutionized understanding of Minoan chronology, population movements, trade relationships, and technological capabilities while providing objective data that can be used to test and refine archaeological interpretations developed through traditional excavation and artifact analysis methods. The ongoing efforts to decipher linear as script continue to represent one of the most challenging and potentially rewarding aspects of Minoan studies, with recent advances in computational analysis, comparative linguistics, and statistical methods offering new hope for unlocking the written records that could provide direct insights into Minoan language, literature, religion, administration, and historical consciousness that would transform understanding of their civilization and its achievements. The conservation and preservation challenges posed by Minoan archaeological sites and artifacts, including problems related to environmental exposure, tourist impact, and the deterioration of early restoration work, require ongoing investment in advanced conservation techniques and site management strategies that balance preservation needs with public access and educational goals, while ensuring that future generations will be able to study and appreciate these remarkable archaeological treasures. The integration of Minoan archaeological discoveries into broader understanding of Bronze Age Mediterranean history has required careful comparison with contemporary civilizations, analysis of interconnections and influences, and reconstruction of the complex political, economic, and cultural relationships that connected diverse ancient societies through trade, diplomacy, and cultural exchange networks that shaped regional development throughout the second millennium BCE. The popular fascination with Minoan civilization, reflected in numerous books, documentaries, museum exhibitions, and educational programs, demonstrates the continuing relevance and appeal of their achievements, while creating opportunities for public engagement with archaeological research that supports continued investigation and preservation efforts while fostering appreciation for ancient Mediterranean cultural heritage. the scholarly debates that continue to surround various aspects of Minoan civilization, including questions about their origins, political organization, religious beliefs, and the causes of their decline, reflect the complexity of the archaeological evidence and the challenges involved in reconstructing ancient societies from material remains, while ensuring that ongoing research continues to refine and improve understanding of this remarkable ancient civilization. The enduring legacy and continuing influence of Minoan civilization extends far beyond their chronological boundaries and geographic territories, with their innovations in art, architecture, technology, and social organization providing foundations for subsequent cultural development throughout the Mediterranean region, while establishing precedents and models that continue to inspire creativity and achievement throughout the classical period and into modern times. The artistic achievements of Minoan civilization, including their naturalistic frescoes, sophisticated pottery designs, and elegant architectural aesthetics, established visual vocabularies and design principles that were absorbed into classical Greek culture and transmitted through Roman civilization to influence European artistic development throughout the medieval and Renaissance periods, while their emphasis on natural beauty, graceful proportions, and harmonious integration of decorative and functional elements continues to inspire contemporary artists, architects, and designers seeking to create works that celebrate the relationship between human creativity and natural beauty. The technological innovations pioneered by Minoan craftspeople, including advanced ceramic techniques, sophisticated metallurgy, precision stone carving, and innovative architectural engineering, provided technical knowledge and practical solutions that enhanced manufacturing capabilities throughout the ancient Mediterranean, while establishing standards of quality and craftsmanship that influenced production methods and aesthetic expectations for centuries after the political decline of Minoan power. The social and political experiments conducted within Minoan civilization, including their apparent emphasis on peaceful conflict resolution, economic cooperation, gender equality, and cultural tolerance, offered alternative models of social organization that challenged traditional assumptions about the inevitability of militaristic authoritarianism in complex societies, while demonstrating the viability of governance systems based on consensus, reciprocity, and mutual benefit rather than coercion and domination. The economic innovations developed by Minoan merchants and administrators, including sophisticated trade networks, standardized commercial practices, quality control systems, and international diplomatic relationships, established precedents for commercial law, international trade protocols, and diplomatic procedures that influence business practices and international relations throughout the classical period, while providing models for peaceful economic cooperation that remain relevant for contemporary global commerce and international diplomacy. The religious and cultural contributions of Minoan civilization, including their nature-centered spiritual practices, seasonal ceremonial cycles, artistic celebration of natural beauty, and integration of sacred and secular activities, offered alternative approaches to spiritual life and cultural expression that emphasize harmony, celebration, and life affirmation rather than the fear, submission, and otherworldly focus that characterize many ancient religious systems, creating precedents for humanistic and naturalistic approaches to spirituality that continue to influence philosophical and religious development throughout Western civilization. The archaeological and scholarly investigation of Minoan civilization has contributed significantly to the development of modern archaeological methods, interpretive approaches, and interdisciplinary research techniques that have enhanced understanding not only of Minoan society, but of ancient civilizations generally, while providing models for international scholarly cooperation, public education, and cultural preservation that demonstrate the value of archaeological research for contemporary society and future generations. The popular fascination with Minoan civilization reflects their success in creating a society that balanced individual achievement with collective welfare, economic prosperity with environmental sustainability, and cultural sophistication with social harmony in ways that continue to appeal to modern audiences, seeking alternatives to the competitive, militaristic, and environmentally destructive tendencies that characterize much of contemporary civilization, making Minoan achievements relevant and inspiring for people concerned about creating more humane and sustainable approaches to social organization and cultural development. The ongoing research projects that continue to investigate various aspects of Minoan civilization, including new excavations, advanced scientific analysis, and innovative interpretive approaches, ensure that understanding of their achievements will continue to evolve and deepen while providing opportunities for fresh insights and discoveries that may challenge existing assumptions and reveal previously unknown aspects of their remarkable culture and lasting contributions to human civilization. The preservation and presentation of Minoan archaeological sites and artifacts through museums, educational programs, and cultural tourism initiatives provide contemporary audiences with direct access to the material remains of this influential ancient civilization while supporting local economies and international cultural exchange that honors the memory and achievements of the Minoan people who created one of the most remarkable and influential civilizations in human history, leaving a legacy that continues to inspire, educate, and enrich human understanding of the possibilities for creating societies that celebrate beauty, prosperity, peace, and human dignity in harmonious relationship with the natural world that sustains all life and provides the foundation for all cultural achievement and lasting happiness.